Welcome back to Ninja of the Seas. You guys asked, and we are going to provide. This video is about the D clan, but in a different manner than the one we did before. Let's get started. In the world of One Piece, the letter D carries a mystery so profound that even the most powerful figures in the story whisper about it in fear. Monkey D. Luffy, Trafalgar D. Law, Gold D. Roger, Marshall D. Teach, the bearers of this mysterious initial are always at the center of cataclysmic events. The 𝐽𝐻𝐽 call them the sworn enemies of the gods. But what if that title isn't just symbolic? What if the D clan literally represents a failed creation? A line of people born from a godlike ambition, one that spiraled out of control? Let's go back 800 years. The ancient kingdom was a vast, technologically advanced civilization that stood against the 20 united royal families who would later form the world government. It's said this kingdom possessed power unlike anything seen since, power capable of challenging the gods themselves. So what if this kingdom wasn't just focused on innovation, but on creation? Consider the possibility that the ancient kingdom was experimenting with life itself. Through genetics, void century science, and will-based technology, they tried to engineer a new type of human, one who could withstand oppression, one who could inherit freedom, one who could carry the will of the dawn. They called this line of superhumans the D generation, not just warriors or leaders, but chosen vessels meant to carry forward their ideals long after the kingdom fell. But something went wrong. Like many ambitious civilizations in both fiction and real-world history, hubris leads to error. Perhaps these experiments created individuals too wild, too free, too uncontrollable. The ancient kingdom may have wanted avatars of peace and balance, but instead gave birth to chaotic agents of revolution. In other words, they created ticking time bombs, humans who would always, no matter what, challenge the status quo. It was too much, too dangerous. And then the Great War began. The 20 kingdoms feared this new breed, this D generation. They joined forces to destroy the ancient kingdom, sealing its history in the Void Century, and began erasing all traces of its technology and ideologies. But the D clan survived. Scattered, hunted, and stripped of context, they wandered through the centuries as rebels, pirates, doctors, kings, and scholars, no longer knowing their true origin, but still carrying that same disruptive fire in their blood. Even Gold D. Roger, arguably the most mysterious of them all, wasn't interested in ruling the world. He wanted to understand it. His journey to Laugh Tale wasn't a conquest, it was a search for truth. And when he learned that truth, he laughed. Perhaps because he realized the irony that the D were supposed to be saviors, but were viewed as destroyers. Failed creations whose only crime was being too true to freedom. The 𝐽𝐻𝐽 and emu understand this. They see the D not as a bloodline to exterminate, but as a virus that can never be fully contained. It's why they act cautiously, why they haven't just wiped them out. You can't destroy a concept. You can only suppress it. That's why emu's first move when activating the Mother Flame was to erase Lulusia, home to 𝐸𝐫𝐽, another revolutionary. The D don't need to all bear the initial. They carry the will, the mutation, the error. And speaking of will, remember the phrase will of D. It's often interpreted as a legacy passed from one to another. But what if will is more literal? What if the ancient kingdom encoded their ideology into the very DNA of the D clan? In One Piece, the concept of inherited will is practically law. Devil fruits, especially Luffy's Nika fruit, respond not just to physicality, but to intent and spirit. It stands to reason the D were meant to be more than rebels. They were meant to be ideological vessels, living reminders of the ancient kingdom's dream. It would also explain why they're drawn to devil fruits, especially the most mythical and dangerous ones. Luffy's 𝐬𝐻𝐽 no Mi model, Nika, is the perfect example. It's a fruit that embodies liberation, laughter, and resistance. Who better to awaken such power than a D? A descendant of the failed experiment to create freedom itself. And now, consider this. What if the failure of the D experiment wasn't just about behavior, but also about time? Perhaps the ancient kingdom knew they wouldn't win the war. Maybe they built the D not for immediate salvation, but for eventual resurgence. A long-term gamble. In this light, the failure wasn't in the creation, but in the execution. The D weren't ready. They were seeds meant to bloom in the future, our present in the story, when the world needed them most. And now they're awakening, one by one. Luffy has unlocked the powers of a literal sun god. Blackbeard is manipulating darkness itself. Law is defying the finality of death. These aren't coincidences, they're triggers. Signals that the ancient programming, the spark planted by a fallen kingdom, is returning to life. This also recasts Joy Boy in a new light. What if Joy Boy was the first of the D, the prototype? A hybrid of laughter and burden, strength and compassion. Someone designed to inspire, not rule. His failure to fulfill the promise to the fishmen wasn't just a personal tragedy, it was the first sign that the experiment wasn't perfect. But now, a new Joy Boy has risen, not as a chosen king, but as the final iteration of that ancient hope. Luffy, the culmination of centuries of failed attempts, may be the D who doesn't break. The world government is terrified of the D, not because they understand them, but because they don't. Because something ancient, buried and broken still burns within these people. A failed experiment, yes, but one that might finally bring the world crashing down or lift it into a new age. And that is the true power of the D. This will be all for this one. We will be expecting you at the next one. Peace out.